So we just give it a photo of any product and we ask it to create, let's say, 25 videos. And once that's done, we get the videos back ready to post.
So TikTok made me buy this, and it turns out it's the best tasting fruit beer in Sydney, and they donate their profits to charity. And you know what? It's honestly really good.
So TikTok made me buy this,
And it turns out it's the best tasting fruit beer in Sydney.
and they donate their profits to charity.
And you know what? It's honestly really good. So I saw these on TikTok, and after a few weeks, my yoga recovery feels way better. And now I feel way more focused for my classes. Maybe it's the fish oil. They really help me with my yoga. Like my joints just feel less stiff now, I swear. So I saw this on TikTok. Everyone was obsessed with this book, and honestly, it's changing how I build my habits, for real.
I just built this AI system that creates infinite UGC style ads for any product or brand completely on autopilot. You just tell it how many videos you want, describe the influencers that you want in your videos, either give them a script or have the system write it for you, and it generates all of those UGC ads ready for you to post. Because if in case you don't know, today's brands are launching ads literally by the hundreds in order to test which creative works, and it's powered by AI systems like these. So once you learn this skill, you can use it for your own product, offer it as a service for clients who need content or UGC with some client acquisition techniques explained near the end of the video, or even earn passive affiliate income by driving traffic to Amazon products. What's crazy is each of these videos only costs 43 cents to make, which is orders of magnitude cheaper versus spending it on influencers for the same type of content. And remember, what you saw in the demo is the worst that it will ever be, because as time goes on, the quality of these will only go up and the cost will slowly go down. So if you're serious about taking advantage of the historic shift that AI is bringing, and with demand for AI agents and automation rising fast if you just check Google Trends, then picking up the skill to make these AI systems, which are all no code anyway so anyone can learn them, is bound to pay off for you in a big way. So if you have the time, invest some today to listen to the end so that you too can master this increasingly important AI skill. Let's get started. If you're new here, my name is Jay. I run my own AI creative agency where we help mostly brands and content businesses use AI in meaningful ways. And I also founded the RoboNuggets community. We have several hundred members now, who are all AI practitioners and builders located across the globe. And here our mission is simple, is to make creating with AI easy to learn for anyone who wants to. That's why in all of our videos, I make sure to go through each note so that you can also understand the principles of creating automations and AI systems like this one that I'm about to show you. But cool, let's dive into this. So essentially, this AI system, the way that you use it is sort of like a mini application. So whenever you need, let's say, UGC ads or content for your product or for your client's product, what you do is you go in here and the only thing that you need to tweak would be this node right here, which is the creative brief. Because if we open that and if we just zoom in, this is essentially where we provide all of the building blocks for our AI agent to create those UGC ads for us. So at the very top, we have here the field for the reference image that we are going to feed this model. And if we open this link, essentially what you'll find is a photo that I took of this Four Pines Brewing Company beer, which we will be using as a demo product for this tutorial. And then if we just scroll down here, there's just a few fields around how many videos that you want. So for this run, we'll create 3 UGC videos, although you can increase that or make that into 1. And then we have this section for the dialogue. So if you have a specific script in mind, this is where you put it. Or if you want the agent to ideate the script, you can just direct it like so, and the agent will actually understand that. But for this one, we'll just give it this specific copy. And then the model, we just set it as Veo3 Fast, which is the cheaper model between Veo3. And then we just have a few more fields here, which we'll go through in a bit around what model to use and what aspect ratio to deliver it as. And you'll see that is vertical, and a free text field around any special requests. And we'll go through this together in a bit. But once you have set these up on your side, that is pretty much all the setup you need in order to create those UGC ads. So now if we execute this workflow, it will handle all the technical heavy lifting for you to create the prompts that you need for those 3 or however many videos that you want to create, as well as the video generation, which this ads factory will be handling automatically. So when that workflow has finished, it will upload all of your videos in the cloud storage of your choice. For this one, we just use Box because it is quite easy to set up. And if we go there, you can see that we have those 3 videos now generated. And this is just one of the examples.
So TikTok made me buy this, and it turns out it's the best tasting fruit beer in Sydney, and they donate their profits to charity.
So that looks really good. So more importantly, how does this whole thing work? We basically have just one picture of a product and out comes a really good UGC video, which you can even define how many you want or which actors that you want. Well, what we're going to do next is I'll just go through each of these nodes so that you can also understand the principles of how to set this up yourself, as well as some of the thinking and prompt engineering that went behind this, particularly for this AI agent node. But very quickly, just the structure of this workflow is quite simple because like a lot of the templates we showed here, we always have this input section where we arrange the elements for our AI agent to work with. And then we have this configuration or factory section where we create the prompts here in this area. We pass it along to our image and video generation model. And then out comes our output, which is the UGC video that we store in Box or whatever storage solution that you are after. So starting with the input section, you can see that the trigger here is manual. And the reason why that is for a lot of these creative workflows, what we're actually finding is that we're using them as sort of like a mini application where basically they generate the ads for us on demand. You can obviously schedule this and connect this whole thing to auto-publishing automations like Blotato, which we featured a lot in this channel. But at least for this case, this is more like a production machine rather than a post-scheduling workflow. But anyway, we already went through this edit fields node, but just a couple of things that we haven't covered in our demo earlier. So if you open this and if you're new to n8n, basically the way that this works is there's always an input area here that are all the data that's coming from previous nodes. You have the configuration of your node here, and then here at the right is the output section, which gives you a preview of the values that this node is passing along to the next ones. Now here, as mentioned, we have the G Drive link for the reference image, which as we showed is just a normal G Drive link. Now to set this up, it's very simple. So on your Google Drive, you just want to create a folder like what I did here, and then just make sure that you share this whole folder for anyone with the link. And the reason why you want that is so that n8n can actually access the images that you put in here. So you can see that I have a couple of product images that I took here as an example and as a test. This is the one we were using. And so all I did to get that link is to just copy that link and place that here. So that is very simple. And then here we declare how many videos we need. So for this one, we've set it as 3. And then for the dialogue, as mentioned, you can either have a specific dialogue or you can also have your AI agent think of the script for you. So in fact, for this walkthrough, let's do that. So let's type something like, please suggest a script that will highlight this product's fruity flavor. And that works because when that's passed along to your AI agent, they'll be able to understand that direction as well. Now for the model, again, this is sort of like a free text field because when we pass this along to the AI agent, all the agent really is doing is to choose between Veo3 fast or Veo3 quality. And basically the difference is Veo3 is a higher quality, but is 5 times more expensive. So with the method we'll show, Veo3 is actually $2 per video, while Veo3 fast is only 40 cents for that 8-second clip. And in my experience, Veo3 is not actually 5 times better in quality. It's only marginally better. So for a lot of use cases, I think Veo3 fast already is enough. So we'll leave that be. And then for the aspect ratio, you can dictate this as vertical. In fact, even if you tell it as portrait, the agent will understand it as well. Or you can also have this as landscape. So just to be different, let's do a landscape one for this specific run. And then we have a free text field here for any special requests, as I showed earlier. Now, if we just expand that, you'll see that we just have a few inputs here where we're saying that we want normal and casual looking people. You can also define the age range here and also have diversity in the actor's gender. So this is the area where you can have the freedom to brief your agent with whatever that you want. So for example, for this run, have all of the actors be in their cars. And then here I also defined some common scenes when it comes to UGC. You can opt not to have this or also add a few more if you wish, but you'll see that we just have a few scenes here describing a person in a podcast, person in their car, an everyday mirror selfie, and so on and so forth. So you can read through that in your own time. But that's just a way for us to give our agent an idea of what we're looking for, is what this edit fields node is about. And so if we execute this step, all that really does is load all of that input data into n8n's run for this one. So if you go to schema, everything here is just what we defined for our agent. So that's pretty good. So now if you click away, the next node here is an analyze image node. So if you open that, you can see we just have it connected to our OpenAI account as a credential, which we've featured several times in our channel, how to do that credential piece. And the operation that we are doing here is for us to analyze the image that we got from Google Drive. And the reason why we're doing that is because as of the moment, n8n's AI agent node cannot actually understand images yet. And so we just need this preceding node in order to feed it information around the image or the visual that we're passing it. So if you look at the command we just gave it, essentially we're just asking it to return its analysis in a format that is quite detailed. So we're asking ChatGPT to identify what the brand name is, what the color scheme is, the font style, what the visual description is of the image we just passed along to it. And here under the URL is where we pass along that said image. Now you can see that there's a bit of a character salad here. And the reason why we need to do that is because with Google Drive, this link that you just gave, n8n, is actually not going to function by itself because it's not a direct download link. And so all we are really doing here is provide that special syntax for Google Drive so that we're simply getting the ID of this particular image. And as a result, we get this final URL, which if you paste to your browser, that will just automatically download that image, which if you look at it from n8n's point of view, that is what you need in order to run this step. So if we execute this step, what it's going to do is to look at that Four Pines beer image. And as an output, if we just go to the table view and under the content, you can see here that we now have that brand name loaded into n8n in text format. It even gave us the color palette in hex code, the font style, and the visual description, which is what we need to inform our agent of what's going to happen next. So that is basically all the input section now done. Now, all of the magic here mostly happens with the AI agent. And so this node, if you open it up, you'll see that with any AI agent, you have a user prompt, which is sort of like what you send to ChatGPT. And then you have a system prompt, which is sort of the underlying instructions on how this agent behaves and what its role in life is. So if we just go to the user prompt and open that, you'll find that we gave it a task to create an image and video prompt as guided by your system guidelines, which we'll go through later. Now, apart from that, we also gave it a few things which we arranged for it neatly earlier. We gave it the count of videos to create, and you can see all of these green values, which means they are dynamic values. And so this is mapping to how many videos that you declared earlier. And so if you remember, we declared 3 videos there. We also gave it the description of the reference image, which is coming from the previous step. And you can see how it translates here, which is what we just saw earlier, and also gave it the user's preferred aspect ratio, the user's preferred model and dialogue script, and other special requests from the user. So if you look at the resulting values here for this run, these are exactly what we declared earlier. So we want a landscape video, we want to use this model, we want it to suggest a script, and finally a couple of special requests that we declared during that very first node. And so that is our request. Now, the system message is the one that is basically dictating how this model behaves. And this is quite detailed, so I'll just go through the specific points. But if you look at this at the very top, we just have an overarching direction here around it being a UGC AI agent, what its task is, which is basically taking the reference image or the product in the reference image and placing it into realistic casual scenes and some extra guidelines there in order to make it more natural. Now, this part is important because if you want a realistic looking video, you actually need to add these sorts of prompts like unremarkable amateur iPhone photos, or else it may look unrealistic in the end. This is where we declare to the agent that if the dialogue is not provided, then please generate that. So you'll see that in action in a bit. And then we have a couple of guidelines here because if you use an ellipsis, that is actually good in Veo3 to indicate pauses. And if you have special characters like M dashes or hyphens in the text, that sometimes shows off the dialogue. So it's just good to make sure that the AI agent doesn't include that in the prompts. And then we also have an avoidance for double quotes because it introduces problems when we are prompting with APIs. And then we have here the agent framework of our ask, which we are just finding is good practice when it comes to creating system prompts. So we made a video of that a few weeks ago if you're curious about this topic. But basically what that means is to provide an agent with your ask, which is what you want it to output to you, some guidance, some examples, the notation, which is important so that the structure it provides you is consistent, as well as the tools that it has access to. So just to point out some of the ones that we haven't covered yet, I think the ask is mostly the same. We just added this scene count rule, which is basically accommodating for the fact that maybe the user wants only one scene or maybe 3 scenes or did not declare anything at all. We provided it some guidance, which is mostly just a repeat and a reinforcement of the ones we highlighted at the top. And this one's important. Some examples so that it knows what we are looking for in terms of the structure there. So you'll see that more in a bit once we run this. And then the notation, you can read this in your own time. But basically what this is saying is for each scene, please give us an image prompt, a video prompt, the aspect ratio for the video, which is either 9:16 or 16:9, and an aspect ratio for the image, which is these values. So these are coming from just the allowed values of the image and video models we are going to use. And this is also where the model choices are declared. So that's good. And then we just have the think tool here, which you'll see in a bit. Basically, that allows the agent to double check its output before giving it to you. So very detailed system prompt. That's what it takes in order to make this agent really smart and run on its own on autopilot. And if you click away, you'll see that the tools it has access to is pretty much standard. We are just using GPT 4.1. We have the think tool that we referenced earlier. Didn't really change anything here. This is the default, but just adding it there will allow the agent to sort of reason and think about its output before finalizing it. And then most importantly, you have the structured output, which is where you declare that final output structure that you want the agent to adhere to, right? So this is just similar to what we went through in that notation section. So lots of setup and prompt engineering that happened there. But now if we execute this step, what it will basically do is take all of the inputs that we so neatly arranged for it, and now it is thinking through what to do with those inputs using the GPT 4.1 model as its brain. And then you can see it also used the structured output subnode there in order to give us these scenes. So if we go to schema, you'll see that we have 3 scenes in here. And then each of the scenes has an image prompt where we see that the character it chose is a 22-year-old man with medium brown skin and so on. And the setting, because we declared everyone to be in a car, this person will also be in a parked car during daytime and so on. We have a video prompt here where it suggested this dialogue. You can actually taste the fruity stuff in this. It's way more than your usual beer. Honestly, I really like it. So that sounds pretty good. And then you have the aspect ratios here as well as the model. And then you have the same thing for the different scenes here, but this time for different characters. So you can see this is a 28-year-old white non-binary person with short blonde hair. So we'll see what that looks like in a bit. But that's perfect. We now have all of our prompts, right? So we're ready to feed that into our models. But before we do that, we just need this split out node, because if we open that, you'll notice that these scenes are existing in n8n's run as one item. But if you want to generate these videos one by one, you actually need to pass them along one by one as well. So our end in mind here in the output is to have 3 items, where we basically just split out these scenes into their individual items. So very simple, we just added split out. The only thing we defined here is which field to split out, which is basically the scenes group. So that's what we'll be splitting out. And then if you execute that step, all that really did is to output those 3 items, where now if you go to the table view, you have those same image and video prompts, but you now have 1, 2, and 3 items there. So that's perfect, because now we can proceed to actually generating those videos. And the way this is done is via 2 steps. First, you generate the image to put those characters that the AI agents chose with the product that you gave it. And then once those images are generated, we then pass that along to our video model, which is Veo3 Fast in this case, via an image to video request, so that we sort of animate those videos, including the dialogue that we selected. So let's do this. If we open create image, this node is basically called an HTTP request node, because all it really does is request a third-party tool or a third-party model to do some sort of job for us, which is why you can see we set the method as post, because you're sort of like posting a message. And if you're posting a message, you need an address to do that. And so this is that address. And you can see that we are using OpenAI's GPT-4o image model, sometimes called GPT Image 1. But we're doing that via this service called Key.ai, which we featured already a lot in this channel. But if you look at Key.ai, what they are is basically an AI model aggregator. So think of them as sort of like an app store that makes it really easy for you to access these models. So you can see there's a lot of models here, and the one we're using is this 4o image API. And this is the address to request that from. You can see we just have our credentials set up here. So again, we featured that in previous videos, or if you're part of the community, you can also learn how to do that in our setup guide in our classroom section there. But with every request, you obviously would need the body of that request. And so this is where we define that. And we are defining that using the JavaScript object notation format, or JSON. All we really have here is KeyAI's accepted structure for a request, which we got from their documentation. You'll see we're passing along, once again, this Google Drive link, which if you open this, this is just going to point to that same image that we gave our agent before. But obviously, we also have to give it to our ChatGPT image model, the same way that you would actually do it if you were in chatgpt.com. And then we just have the prompt here, which is again a dynamic value, but you can see that we just got this from this previous image prompt. And so that is what is showing. And you can actually cycle through this to show the three prompts that we're about to pass along. Now, there's some special characters here, right, where we are replacing a few things. This is just a way in n8n to what you call escape characters, like these double quotes or these \n or new lines, because to services like Key AI, it will actually cause problems for you. So this sort of syntax handles that for you automatically. Because if you don't have that, it will say something like the JSON structure is incorrect. So there's a lot of sensitivity there. This is just a required field, I believe, where we are defining how many images we want. And obviously for this case, we just want one. So the last thing I set up here is just a batching component. So what that is basically saying is, since we have 3 items to pass, we'll just pass them one by one item per batch in an interval of 3000 milliseconds. So basically 3 seconds. And that's just a way to not overload the request, which sometimes results to problems with the payload. So if we execute this step, it will show a status of 200, which means that our request has been accepted. It doesn't mean that the image has been generated yet, because that does take time, which is why we have a wait node here, which if we open that, we just set this as 300 seconds or 5 minutes, which is usually more than enough time for the images to generate. So if you execute this step, what that will just do is count down literally from 300 seconds to 0. So once that is done, you can now move on to this next node, which is just a way for us to get the images that we just generated. So it's another HTTP request node where we are getting the images from this URL of Key AI. And again, this is as per their documentation. We just have our credentials set up there once again. And the only thing that we are passing here is the task ID, which we got coming from the create image that was assigned to us to point to the specific request that we just made for it. Because Key AI is a big place, this one ID will just point to what image we actually generated. So if we execute this step, we can see if that image has now been done. And even though this is a status code of 200, sometimes it varies per provider. For Key AI, for example, what you actually need to look for is this success flag. And since it says 0, and since there is no image URL anywhere here, that basically means that it is still generating. In fact, it says so right here. So if it's still generating, what basically will happen here is after this node, there is this if node, which is pretty standard practice with a lot of these creative n8n workflows, where basically what this is saying is, if that success flag is equal to 1, let's proceed to the next step. But since it is not yet 1, what will happen is if we execute this step, it will just map to the false branch here, right? So what happens there visually is that instead of mapping to true and proceeding to creating the videos, we just mapped it back to the wait node for us to wait a bit more. And so whenever you run this, it will just loop back up until all of those images have been generated. And if you are running through this manually, what you can actually do is, if you go to your Key AI dashboard, you can just head to your logs section here, and under 4.0 image, you'll be able to find the status of those 3 requests. And you can see here that they have now finished generating. And so if we re-execute this get image step, you'll now see that the success flag for these 3 items are now 1. The status also says success. So that is looking good. And in fact here, obviously when this workflow runs in the background, you won't see these URLs anymore. But if you just copy those, you can actually preview it in your browser tab. And that is looking pretty good. So it's in landscape. The guy's in a car, which is as per our instructions with the agent earlier. And it actually looks very realistic. And it even got a lot of the text correct. Obviously, it's not as perfect yet. But honestly, if you just zoom out and later once you see this as a video, a lot of those will not really be noticeable. And this is also the worst that it will ever become. Because text adherence is so important, I feel like at some point these problems will anyway be solved. Anyway, that is good. You now have your 3 images. This is the second one, so that's looking good as well. And this is the third one. So this one's interesting because they're not looking at the camera. So we'll see how Veo3 handles that. But all right, now that that is done, we can proceed. Let me just pin these notes so that I don't lose them. There you go. Because now we are going to create the videos, right? So this is, once again, we are going to post a request. We are still using Key AI as a service, but this time we'll be using Veo3. Now, the reason why I chose Key AI for this workflow is because as of right now, they actually offer Veo3 at the cheapest possible option for you if you're doing it on an automated manner. So they're able to offer Veo3 fast at 40 cents. If you go to other AI model aggregators like Fall AI or I think even Replicate, those services actually charge a cost of $3.2 per video, which is 8 times versus Key AI. Google Flow is actually cheaper, but two problems there is you need to subscribe to their monthly plans, whereas Key AI, you can do it on a pay-as-you-go basis. And number two, I don't think they have an API yet as of this moment. So you'll have to go to their platform and software, and you'll have to do a lot of the prompt engineering yourself and also upload the images coming from ChatGPT. Whereas here, the n8n workflow as your orchestrator handles a lot of that automation for you and actually talks to a lot of the models that you need. So it's just much faster overall. In any case, that is the reason why we're using Key AI, and you can see it's pretty much the same here. And if you open this body, that is again just coming from Key AI's documentation where we are giving it the prompt, which you can see here. Again, you can shuffle through the 3 different prompts that our AI agent generated for us. The model and aspect ratio is here. And then we have here the image URL, which if we open that, that's basically the generated image that we had from earlier, which is what we need in order to do an image to video task. So I think we have everything we need. We have batching turned on as well here just for hygiene. And now if we execute that step, this should give us status code of 200 as well, which indicates that we have successfully posted that request. And once again, we are going to wait for that generation. This one is set to 600 seconds because if you're using Veo3 quality, that's roughly the time it takes. Veo3 fast is actually much faster. I think 2 minutes, 3 minutes is usually enough. So you can just change this if you want. But if we execute this step, it will just count down from 600 seconds to 1, same as before. And when that node has finished and the workflow gets to this part, all we are really doing is to get that video. Same thing, we're getting the record info. And same thing, we are getting the task ID here, which we got when we sent that request and KAI assigned us that unique ID. So if I execute this step, it will show you the status of each. The first one is actually already complete, but the second one, not yet. And so we just have this if node here functioning the same way where we are just checking if those have been all successful or not. And here you can see that it's sort of bifurcated, right? So you have a true branch here where one item is already a success, and the false branch here is basically saying that 2 generations are still not yet done. So for those 2 items, what will happen is it'll just go back to the wait node, while you can see one item here is already proceeding to the next step. So that's how it will happen when it runs in the background. But for our case, let's just wait for the rest of those 2 videos before we proceed. So once again, you can just check your logs at KAI, and it seems like those 3 videos are now all good. So what we'll do next is let's just re-execute this get video, and that should indeed tell us that these are all successful. And so now if we click on this if node, all of them should be true. So we're passing along those 3 items into our final output nodes, where basically we just have this extra node to get the video files. All this really does is we have this method set to get. We are passing along the URLs from the preceding node, which is this result, which again, this is a link that you can actually preview in your browser. It ends in .mp4. So these are the videos themselves. So we'll be viewing them later together. And that's everything you need for this config. We're basically just translating those URLs into, once we execute this step, actual data, which if you think about videos, they're all just data under the hood, right? So you have the 3 items here. You can actually view them within n8n to preview it. So this is the first one.
You can actually taste the fruity stuff in this. It's way more than your usual beer. Honestly, I really like it.
That's pretty interesting. And then let's view the second one.
I swear this has to be the fruitiest beer I've tried. Like, you actually get the punch of citrus. It's kind of addictive.
So that looks pretty good. And you can also see some subtitling here, which is still a problem sometimes with Veo3, unfortunately. So as per Google, they're working on that. But there is a probability that you may get that. So if I were to use that video, I'll probably just crop that out. And then the third one, let's see.
You know when a beer actually has flavor? This one's super fruity, like drink in summer. I could relax here all day.
That looks pretty good as well. But I think because of the landscape nature of it, I think that functions more like a B-roll rather than a UGC type ad. But with those files now loaded, You now just have a final node. This is entirely your choice. I just put in here box because that is actually the easiest to set up the credential for. n8n has a single sign-on method there, but all we are really doing here is uploading those files. You can see the file name. You can decide this on your own, but we're just setting the task ID here for it to be unique, and then ending with .mp4 because that's the file type. We turned on the binary file, which is basically what you call these files that we just loaded in n8n, and then the input binary field is called data because these are named as data. So that is quite straightforward. If you just execute that step, what it will now do is upload those into our Box account. This is my Box account. Let's just refresh that, and there you go. We now have those 3 landscape videos with us as well. And there, that is the workflow in full. Now, a few tips and thoughts as well. The great thing about this workflow is that you can actually feed it any image. So we have people in the community who tried methods like this with furniture, for example, and that works fairly well. And if in case you are working with a brand who, let's say, has a defined target market, you can just go to your edit fields node and just define that under this special requests on what the age range is. You can define all of that here in your creative brief, the same way that you would brief a creative designer, for example. And then the other thing that we were discussing in the community is the way by which you can pitch clients using this kind of workflow. Because let's say you have a client in mind in your network, what you can actually do is just run this workflow on their product without any permission and just show them the output, right? Because I think we're at the stage where a lot of business owners don't really realize yet a lot of the capabilities with video that we have shown here in this channel. And so there was one member in our community who has found some success in that, similar to, if you remember, when website builders like Framer or Webflow or those types of easy web design platforms came about. It basically enabled web design creative agencies to pitch clients by creating the website from scratch, just to show them what the capabilities are, even before being hired. So that's one option for you to explore, which is possible now because of the sheer low cost to make one video, which is only like 43 cents. And if you need a breakdown of the cost, I laid it out here. Very simple. It's basically just 43 cents per video, which is magnitudes lower versus if you were to hire an actor to do this for you. So that would be your variable cost, which is basically the cost per video. Obviously, you have a fixed cost, but if you are already using n8n, then this is not really incremental for you. But that is just something to be aware of. And also, obviously, this is for an 8-second video. In a future lesson that I am planning, I will show how you can extend that for UGC type videos as well. Still all automated using n8n, so stay tuned for that. And if you need the template for this, which is basically like a shortcut where you can just import it here in n8n without having to set it up yourself, as well as the setup guide of how to set up all those credentials and everything in between, you can just find it in our classroom section if you are part of the community. And if you're not yet part of this group, then do check it out to see if it's for you. A lot of people join because of the dozens of lessons on AI and automation here, all geared towards helping you create better with AI, with a lot of tutorials and lessons here around faceless videos, as well as content automation, and also creative agency work as well if you're into that. And even though that's the reason why people join, a lot of people stay because of all the opportunities for collaborations with the community as well, and also because of events that we have with industry experts like this one with Sabrina from Blotato. So if you're looking for those step-by-step courses with those ready-to-load automation blueprints, including a chance to collaborate and also earn from AI, then have a check at the community to see if it's for you. But that's it. Consider liking and subscribing on YouTube because that just helps us a lot to keep on putting out more content and learning tutorials here on this platform. That's it for this one, guys. See you next time. Thank you.